Good morning. Today we are continuing on with that unit 1. We are working on Po4. I can estimate and round whole numbers and decimals. So we need to think about what it means to round or estimate. Rounding or estimating is approximating a value to a number that is oftentimes easier to work with. So when the directions tell us to round or estimate, it's because we want those easier numbers. A multiple of 10 is easier to work with. So if we have 39 versus 40, it's easier to work with that 40, with that multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting. It's an easier number. Okay? We could do more mental math that way when we're able to estimate or round. In order to round effectively, it's important to know your place values, especially those decimal places. Round 768 to the nearest hundred means what hundred is 768 closest to. Your answer would either be 700 or 800, because we're rounding in that hundreds place. So we need to look at that digit after that 700 to see if what you're going to round to. So that 7 is followed by a 6. There's a 68. Is that going to be rounding up or rounding down, Adeline? How do you know it's rounding up? Yeah. If it's 5 or more, up you go, right? 5 or more, we round up. 4 or less, it would stay the same. So 768, that 68 is closer to the next 100 than it is to 0. So that 6 tells us we're rounding up. 768 would round up to 800 as opposed to going down to 700. Does that make sense? So it does having 6 tens mean the number is closer to 700 or 800. We just worked through that. For each of the following, write which two numbers your answer could be. Then write your answer. Now is when it really comes in handy to know our decimal values. So I'm going to write that here. On the test, you're probably going to want to put that on your help sheet, so you know where the different place values are to round to. So if you don't have this on the help sheet or the notes that I gave out, you're going to want to write this, because I don't think I put this on your notes. So make sure you add to it. So we have hundreds, tens, ones. Those are 768. Then we have our decimal place. Then we have tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. It's important to remember that there is no once place. When we look at those decimals, it automatically starts up with the tenths place. So that's that first decimal value would be the 10th place. Some of us are pretty confident and we go, I know my decimal places, I'm good. Sometimes it's good just to write it as a reminder. Okay, just to refer back to it, do I really have the correct value placement? Because let me tell you, a lot of times that's what goofs people up. They understand the rounding, but they round the wrong number. So it's really important to remember exactly which place we are rounding to. So, the example would be 56.12. Rounded it to the nearest 10th place. So, that 10th place is the first decimal place. So I'm either going to round it up, I'm going to round that 1 in the 10th place up to a 2, or it's going to stay a 1. Everything after it turns into a 0, or nothing. If it's a 0, you don't have to put anything. But everything after the 10th place turns into a 0. And that 1 was followed by a 2, so we know the answer is going to be 56.10, because it's going to stay the same. So let's work through it together. Round 75,448 to the nearest hundred. So I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, okay, this is my hundreds place. So my answer is going to be 75,400 or 75,500. It's either going to, that 104 in the 4 in the hundreds place is either going to stay the same or it's going to move up 1. Everything after it's a 0. You don't just drop it off, because then all of a sudden we don't have 75,400. If I didn't put those zeros in there, then it would look like 754. So it's important you put those zeros all the way to where that decimal point would be. Decimal points are always after the ones place. If there's no decimals, we don't have to put the decimal place, but we do need to put those zeros in there. So what is the answer? Is it going to be 75,400 or 75,500? What do you think, Jack?
75,400.
You are correct. Because after that hundredth place in the 10th place is a 4, it stays the same. So it's going to be 75,400. Let's look at our next one. 18.157 to the nearest 10th place. Which decimal place is my 10th place? James?
Oh, the one nearest to the decimal.
Yeah, that first decimal place where that 1 is. So I'm going to draw a line under it. So I make sure I know which place I am rounding. Okay, it's one of those little things we do just to keep us on track. Make sure we're rounding the right place. Even though we know our places, even me as the teacher, I know my places. When I make my answer key for the test, I always underline that place value that I need to round just to make sure I'm rounding the right one. Okay, it's just that added checkpoint that we give ourselves. So that 10th place has a 1 in it. I'm going to look at the number after. Well, first, I have to write what my number is going to be. So I'm either going to keep it that 1, or I'm going to round it up to a 2. So those are my two choices. So if that 1 is followed by a 5, what am I going to do, Liam?
You're going to round up to 18,000.
So close, but that is a decimal point.
Oh, 18.2.
18.2 or 200. So because it's decimals, we could call it 18 and 2/10, we could call it 18 and 2/1000. It's the same value. So you can decide when you're dealing with decimals if you want to put those zeros after it, or if you just want to leave it 18 and 2/10, 18.2. Okay. Sometimes people find it easier just to fill in those zeros, and that's totally fine. Let's do one more together. 201 and 815 thousandths to the nearest whole. When we round to the nearest whole, it means we're rounding to that ones place. So we're going to round to the ones place. So my ones place, what digit is in my ones place? Is that it?
8.
Oh, that 8 is in the 10th place. It's on the other side of that decimal.
Oh, the 1.
Yeah, so that ones place is going to be on the left side of that decimal. So my answer could be 201, I could keep that 1 the same, or 202. And I can put those decimal zeros after it, but I do not have to. So if that 1 is followed by an 8, what does that mean? Am I going to keep it a 1 or am I going to round up to a 2? What do you think, Lexi? I'm going to round up to a 2. 5 or more. Up I go. So it's going to be 202. You can either just put 202 or you could put the .000. Same. Any questions on that rounding? Show me your thumbs. How are we feeling about the rounding? Okay, it really is a good idea to have your place values written out to help you refer back. Am I rounding the right one? Also, underline the place that you are rounding to help you keep focused on which number we're rounding to. I need zeros after it. Sometimes when people round, they forget to put the zeros after, and that would really change a number like this first one. If we didn't have those zeros after that 4, we're writing 754 as our answer. And 75,000 is not going to round down to 754. Make sure you put those zeros all the way to that decimal point. It's after the decimal point that you need to look, do I want to add the zeros or not? But before the decimal point, you always have to add those zeros in. Let's scroll, I don't know if I can, oh, I can. You're going to finish off those last two on your own. We're going to keep looking at the rest of our directions. When rounding, here's the rule. If the digit after the place you are rounding is 0 to 4, you round down. And the place number stays the same. If the digit after the place you are rounding is 5 to 9, you round up. And the place number increases by 1. This is what we've been talking about. So now we have some more rounding to do. If, it says round each number below to the given place. So they're giving us the number, we're going to underline the place that we are rounding, and we're going to practice it. So it says round to the nearest 10, not 10th, 10. So what is the nearest, what digit do we find in the tens place? Kylie?
7.
A 7, so I'm going to underline that 7. I'm going to look at the number after the 7. It is followed by a 2. A 2 is between 0 and 4, so it's going to stay the same. So I have 3,470. I cannot forget to put that 0 on there. Okay. If my initial number is 3,472, my number is either going to be 3,470 or 3,480. You have to have that 0 in the ones place. Any questions on how to do the rest of this page? All right, let's look at our next page. Again, round each number to the given place. If you need to write your places up at the top of this page so you don't have to flip back and forth, you can write those places, thousands, hundreds, tens, ones, tenths, hundreds, thousands. So what we wrote on the first page, you can write it again up at the top of this page to help you out. Again, underlining the place value. And then look at the number that comes after it. Now in the middle of the page, it says distance and time are two things that are often rounded, right? We need to round the distance when people are running in track and how fast did they run the mile. Maybe it's 7 minutes and how many seconds. We have to round it. We're not gonna say oodles, right? We just round to a certain decimal place. How precise the rounding is has to do with the value. Typically, the larger a value is the larger place value it is rounded to. For example, the world's population might be rounded to the nearest million, while the price of a loaf of bread might be rounded to the nearest dollar. Can you think of something that might be rounded to the nearest hundreds place? What might we round to a hundreds place? Any guesses? I'm going to put down pennies. Why might we round pennies to the nearest hundreds place? Say it louder, Kellen. You can count dollars then. If we round our pennies to the hundreds, 100 pennies is $1. So you can say, oh, I have about $5 instead of saying, I have 498 pennies. It's easier to say I have about $5. What might we round to the nearest inch? What do you think, Bennett?
Blueprints?
Maybe blueprints? But if we're building, we might want to actually be precise with the building. But you're right, blueprints wouldn't have sizes on it. James?
Centimeters. No.
That's just another type of measurement. What thing, if we're measuring, might we round to nearest inch? What do you think, Aiden? Maybe a wall? Adeline? Maybe a pencil. How many inches long is that pencil? Mr. Schultz put down screen size. How big is your device's screen? Oh, it's about 11 inches. Right? So we might round that to the, how big is your TV at home? It's about 43 inches. It's about 55 inches. Okay? It might not be exactly precise. It might be super close. Maybe a little under, a little over, but it's going to be about that size. And to the nearest hundredth of a second, that would be something like a race time when you're running track. How fast did you run? You're not going to give those seconds out to the 100,000th place. Okay, they're going to round it to that 100th place. Then the bottom of this is a review of those first 3 objectives we just did. So you're going to look at the direction. What is the absolute value of 3? If you go, oh my goodness, Miss Gambino, last week was so long ago. Whew. I do not remember what absolute value is. What are you going to do? Adeline? Look back in your binder at that page that has absolute value. Okay, that's why we have these review sections, because we know what we did last week was a long time ago. And what we did 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a long time ago. So we're refreshing our memory so we can remember how to do those problems. So this bottom part is all stuff that we've already done. We're just reviewing it. So look back at the first 3 objectives to see how to do those if you forgot. Any questions on today's assignment? So you have today's assignment to work on. We are correcting this tomorrow. That's your first most important thing to do. Then you have Khan Academies due on Thursday. And you have math packet. Number 1 is due next week, Tuesday. If you get it turned in to me before Friday, I will go through and correct and give back to you so you can fix any mistakes you made. When I get done with this lesson, I'm going to go and pass out the ones that I got on Friday so people can fix up mistakes that they made. Okay, so this is math work time. We are not doing any other work, just math. Get your homework done first, then you can work on Khan Academy or the math packet. But it's just math work time. If you are listening to this at home, I hope you are well. I hope to see you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.